we have an executive session that they're joining us a little early for, so. And there is Bill.
There's Bill.
Yeah, Bill.
Hey.
Hi, Bill.
Hello. We're gonna go ahead and call the meeting to order at 6:05. We do have a quorum, but we expect 2 more people to join us as the meeting goes on. So I'll call the meeting to order. Anyone who wishes to stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance or remain seated for a moment of silent meditation.
I'll stand with you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible,
Indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We need to approve the minutes from the July 18th annual meeting. Do we have a motion to approve those minutes? Barbara? Thank you. 1 second. Marcia, thank you. Are there any changes or comments about the annual meeting minutes? Do we need a second to review or can we vote?
I'll move to approve.
Oh, okay. All in favor of approving the annual meeting minutes, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Nope. Okay, it's unanimous. We also have minutes from the monthly July 18th meeting. Is there a motion to approve those? Thank you, Barbara. Second?
I'll do.
Thanks, Marcia. Any comments or discussion about the monthly meeting minutes from July? Okay, there's no comments. All in favor of approving the minutes from the monthly July 18th board meeting, please say aye. Anyone opposed?
Aye.
Any abstentions? Okay, moving right along. Pete, I'm assuming that you have access to any public input that we may have received.
We have not received any at this point.
Okay.
I don't see any signups, but if there's any public comments,
No public comments then, so we're moving along to the personnel action. Well, it storms a little bit outside. Hey, Mike, we're fine. Just,
We shut down
Um,
and everybody else.
we went ahead and started just so we could make it to executive session, but all we've made it through is passing the minutes, so. So we are moving on to personnel actions then. So we have 4 personnel actions. The first is to accept the resignation of Jill Tomanowski, Librarian 1, effective August 2nd, 2024. The resignation of Erica Irwin, Library Page, effective July 19th, 2024. The resignation of Angel Jackson, Library Page, effective August 3rd, 2024. And to accept the appointment of Catherine Lippard, Library Page, effective July 31st, 2024. Is there a motion to approve those personnel actions? The specific dates weren't listed in the packet, but Pete confirmed beforehand.
So, what were those dates again?
Erica Irwin's is July 19th and Angel Jackson's is August 3rd. Is there a motion to approve the personnel actions?
I don't have it in my packet. Yeah, I don't.
Yeah. Oh,
Oh, okay.
it's right after the minutes.
Maybe it's not in the print. I'm guessing you
Oh,
will have.
The one that was on the email.
Yeah, it was through email.
Oh, okay.
So it's, yeah, it just didn't happen to make it into the minutes. But it's those.
I'll move to approve it.
Okay, thank you, Alish. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thanks, Mike. All in favor of approving those personnel actions, please say aye. Any opposed or abstentions? That is unanimous. George, you have the floor.
All right, everybody has a copy, I think. And
Is that all
they
over
were in
there?
their packages.
Or I also have copies for anyone who needs one. Let's set it down.
So we'll look at the balance sheet, the statements of debt position first, and there's nothing particularly remarkable on this. Last month, we talked about that there was an attempted security breach at NBT, so they ended up moving a lot of the money around and everything. And because of that, there was about $2 million that ended up going out of the short-term investments into a CD or a money market that's being shown as the cash and cash equivalents. So those numbers look similar between the 2 months. They're down about $400,000 because of the expenses during the month. But normally that would run much less in cash and cash equivalents, and our goal is to minimize that and put the money into investments where we're earning, fairly good interest. Prepaid expenses always goes up in July because we prepay various insurance bills. And accounts payable went down about 50,000 during the month. But I think other than that, the numbers are very consistent between last month, which was the end of the last year, and this month. The statements of revenue, expenses, and changes in net position. And I guess I would say it's the first month and we're still tweaking the budget a little bit, not the total, but the way that we allocate it. And I'll talk a little bit about that, but starting out with the revenue, we did receive a grant in July for $10,941. And it's a grant that we get most Julys, but we don't budget for it because it's not something that's absolutely guaranteed. Salaries and wages are favorable to budget by about $16,226. There's a few reasons for that, including a couple of management confidential positions that are open. We have not processed the management confidential wage increases that would be effective July 1st yet. I think pending the contract and everything we'll be looking at later on. And there's a few things, and we did at least someone asked if we tracked, how we tracked payroll, and I did start receiving reports. I just got it like within the last week, and I put something together, and I just have to summarize it and compare it to budget. But I think it's good because you can see all the detail, and it ties out exactly to the $177,710 in actual expenses, so you can see the changes from pay period to pay period, and we'll keep track of that and be able to provide better budget comparison information. Fringe benefits were favorable by more than they would be proportionate to the favorable salaries and wages. And part of it is in health insurance was very favorable. And we realized that when we budgeted that we put in for an increase this year, but that increase won't happen until January. So we're going to adjust the budget a little bit to be at a rate for the next 6 months, and then in July to go up. And I think we were expecting an increase of, the 12% range or a little bit higher. And I think the expenses lined up fairly well to the budget. Other than that, there's a couple of things like taxes, water and sewer that typically gets paid once a month or once a year, and I think October, November. I think that's it. Interest income is down a little bit, and I think there's a couple of reasons for that. One, and David mentioned, and I think he's right, that some of the CDs pay interest on maturity, so that will happen in the next month in August. And the other thing was that when they moved the money out of the IntraFi account, we were getting about 5.15% on that. And when the 2 million moved over and they put it in something else, I think it only was getting about 3%. So we did talk about that, and, you know, it would be nice to move it back into the higher interest rate as soon as we can. I think that's it. Are there any questions on the financial statements? Anything at all?
You noticed it takes the different retirement payout, like monthly costs. I want to check this.
I have a check register.
Yeah, because it's, I think that's like part of the variance, right, is we have we like we're over what we thought we were gonna pay. Sorry. Accountant.
You
Terms
moved
over
on
my
to the
head.
check register.
Okay, well,
Yeah, let's look at it.
but I'm
But
looking
that's
at
good.
looking into why we might be, if I'm reading this right, over. Right? If it's not in brackets. Brackets is negative.
Brackets is bad.
Oh, the brackets is bad. Okay.
Yeah.
Never mind, I am ahead of myself.
Yeah, oh, yeah. Yeah,
Disregard.
when I,
That question.
whenever I do variances, brackets are bad.
Brackets
It's
are bad.
revenue or that.
Okay, I was reading it the other way around. It's like, so we're 16,000 over and 12,000 over. Okay.
I explained that to my wife one time, that if your checking account has brackets around the numbers, that's bad.
Okay.
That's all.
My bank account stopped doing that entirely, so I have to like really pay attention.
It's- Yes,
You mentioned that you're gonna develop a new form for payroll. I know that workshop that we had suggested that we have a breakout of like the IT versus admin or the various departments, children's, adult.
Yep.
Is that what you're aiming for?
so when we did the budget, I think we tried to break it out. I don't think we want to show every position basically, but I think to break it out into maybe management confidential. I think when we did the budget, we broke out maybe librarians and aides and custodial. Trying to think of the other ones. I was gonna try to follow the budget because I have these budget numbers for it and everything. But we'll have, you know, if people want to look at more or less, you know, it'll be there.
I know, Corey, you were at the same workshop that I was. My interpretation was that the more you pull out and show, the better versus just saying, you know, librarian ones or something. Did you get a different understanding of that or?
I think you're right, like that their recommendation was to pull out as much as possible, which is what you're sort of like well, without
There's a happy medium.
distinguishing, yeah,
But an individual position, right?
yeah, which is what you're working towards, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, ideally, yeah.
But I didn't think we wanted to
The
look
more
at
the better.
individual.
No.
positions. I just thought that, you know, because of the whole
But like
bunch.
adult services, children's services, IT, janitorial, you know,
Major categories.
admin, yeah, major categories like that. That's great.
Yeah, so right now I do have, they downloaded the payroll registers and everything. But I do have to work with Pete because it doesn't have titles on it. And a lot of it I can pick up from the budget, but I don't, you know, some I know, but there's just a lot of people with a whole bunch of different things, so.
That'd be staff members there.
Yeah. So we didn't talk about the investment report, did we? So the investment report is there. We don't have a statement for the NPT, the $2,005,000. I guess with all the changes around, we ended up not getting statements. So when we get that, I'll probably include it in the next report. And it's pretty much the same as last month, except I think last month we hadn't even got to the point of investing that $2 million into interest-bearing accounts. I do think they're paying about 3%, and as you can see, it was 5.15% on the IntraFi account that we set up a while ago. All the other investments are the same, except the 69,000 CD for the bank there was another bank that matured and they ended up put this one in, so that's essentially very similar to last month.
Do we have 2 million and change in the money market account?
Yeah,
Wow.
that was their alternative. They couldn't get the IntraFi account set up right away. I expressed last night that I thought that it was taking a long time considering it was 6 weeks ago, but I think they do have them set up as of Monday and everything, so.
What's that paying?
Which one?
Money market?
I think it was 3%, but I don't have a statement, but when I looked at the interest, I did a calculation and came up with roughly that. I could be off though. I should probably wait for the
Why is it
statement.
taking them so long? Because we're really losing money here.
Yeah, it was just complex the way our accounts were set up. So once they got the online banking change, they had to go back in and set the accounts up the way they were.
Are they gonna pay us back in?
I think you know the answer to that.
Yeah, it's not good.
Thanks, George.
Fine.
Oh, in the check, oh, so the check register is there. I mean, I will point out that, I had the same reaction that Pete had when he looked at it and he asked for the check to be pulled and we're researching it, but there is a check on the second page to the Gilderland Central School District for $4,980, which is the GPL share of the bond services. And what we talked about, and when I saw it, it was like, when we used to get those invoices that got charged to the project. So now that we've given all the money back to the school district, it seems as though there should be enough money from those funds to pay for that. So that's what we're gonna investigate to see if we can put it back there. And I don't, it's not shifting it, it's just that, you know, there's money there for that.
What's the check number you're referring to?
33157.
Oh, okay.
So that will be held until we kind of figure that out.
Do we know what this, 33-126 is ViewSonic 65?
It's smart boards like that one. We replaced one in one of our other meeting rooms, and then we added a freestanding one that can be moved from room to room.
Okay.
And I have a question. 33133. All-rated 30 inch. Is that a monthly charge or quarterly charge?
That is not a monthly charge. The monthly charge is, they service twice a month, and it ranges from $300 to $400 for a service. So in a month, it should be $600 to $800.
So that was just, they didn't bill us or something?
There were, yes, they actually hadn't billed us since November of last year. So we had to go back and clean up missing invoices. Yep.
So we're paying about 10,000 a year for the fish tank base.
Your math.
I have a vague recollection, that this was donated.
So the foundation paid for X amount of months,
Oh,
and that apparently, whatever their agreement for payment
That
expired
expired?
last year.
you can't cajole them in continuing this.
We can, we can, there's.
Because that was a big deal when we got the tank. We knew it's expensive to maintain. And I thought it was gonna be like an evergreen.
Perpetuity.
Yeah, apparently I was incorrect.
Yeah, that was news to me as well, because that was actually why there was the gap in paying them, because the
Yeah.
foundation said, we don't pay anymore, and then.
Yeah, that wasn't was that anybody else's understanding?
It was 6 months.
Was it? Oh, you remember that? Then I'm incorrect.
But I would have no problem asking if they would pay a portion of it,
Turns out
or,
to be true.
yeah.
Maybe.
Could we ask, like, the children's librarians, is it worth 10,000 a year? Do they see that much usage? I mean, if they do that, that's fine, but if they don't, that's That's $10,000 that could go into materials or,
Could go for a lot of things.
yeah.
I'll say anecdotally, it is a centerpiece of the library. It's something that draws people that we can say like, this is what makes our
It's not only
library
kids,
special.
it's not only kids.
Yeah, adults will look at it as well, but yeah, I take, your point's very well taken. That's a big expense for a centerpiece.
Yeah.
What do they do? Because it's something, I mean, I don't know anything about fish. Doesn't the tank clean itself?
I was about to say, are you asking what do the fish do or what do your technicians do?
I'm interested in what we're paying for.
Sure, so the tech comes in twice a week to refill their food, make sure that it's got an automatic feeder, so part of the cost of the
Has to be
food.
refilled?
So we can refill it internally, but part of the expense is the food itself. And they do refresh the water, so there are fish in there that do clean the tank, like they're the ones
Right,
that kind of
Yeah.
go along the bottom, but it does need to be scrubbed and the water has to be replaced. That's actually the biggest time suck is they switch the water out. But yeah, I had the same questions. I didn't know what fit technicians have either.
Maybe we should have the kids feed the
So they do that twice
A
a
month.
month?
Yeah, every
Take out all the water twice a month and replace it.
What?
They would have reviewed already. Give the kids in. Good.
But yeah, no, they completely refresh the water and they change the gravel on the bottom as well. And if we wanted them to, they could change the rocks that are in there.
Okay, I'm sorry. I was
No, it's, I think it's a legitimate question.
Sounds like a good sponsorship opportunity for NBT Bank.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Brought to you by the- Pass that on. Are there other questions about the check register? Okay.
Oh, wait, well, the insurance. one. Now can I ask that?
Yeah.
Oh,
Oh,
okay.
actually, though, that's a good point. I assume that the,
Like, it varies, it seems to vary from like $100 up to 600. And we only cover an individual's insurance, not like family or anything, right?
I believe it's just the
So
individual.
it seems like a huge swing. Does it like taper off or it's always like the same amount?
I think it's based on the level of insurance that the particular employee had when they left.
Oh. Okay.
And it's based on the amount never rises, even though insurance costs rise. So if you close out and you're getting paid, for instance, one of these people, $456 is the library's cost, like that's what you get.
I don't know when Cherry retired, but they get 115. Yes.
What that was when, way those original older contracts, once you're retired and if you hit Medicare age, then we paid the premium for the difference.
Oh,
No,
that makes sense.
United Healthcare or whatever your secondary is.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's why theirs is so low.
I was gonna say the numbers are like vastly different.
Cool. Any other comments on the check register? We have a motion to approve the check register. Thank you, Marcia. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Barbara. All in favor of approving the check register, please say aye. Anyone opposed? Any abstentions? Hey. Unanimous. Pete, Director and Department Head report.
Sure. What a great month. July, fantastic for us. The main event, as I outlined in the report, is summer reading, all the time. And numbers don't always tell the story, but I really wanted to highlight the performance numbers that we had. So our program attendance for elementary school age children was up 485% from our monthly average. Huge numbers for us. And you think summer reading, you think kids, not just them. Attendance in the general interest programs was up 255%. And then really this one impressed the heck out of me because I was here during the summer reading kickoff trying to stay out of everyone's way and be as helpful as I could. 470 registrations in one day, plus all the associated family members who came to hang out, snacks and play with the bubble machine. So it's not just a credit to our community, really getting involved and engaged and enjoying what we're offering them. It's also a credit to the staff because pulling off a program or an event of that magnitude takes a lot of coordination, takes a lot of effort, and the staff have been doing an amazing job. So kudos to all of them. For funsies, I broke out some of the individual attendance numbers just to kind of show the relative popularity. Reptiles, 200 attendees at the reptile event. Over 100 at Fantasy Fair, 50 at Fantasy Quest, and then 29 teens. And like I said, getting 29 teenagers to do anything is fantastic. And that's always, I know that when I'm here after closing and the library's dark and I'm the last one here, it's really kind of exciting. So I'm glad that the teens got to experience that as well. Something that our head of youth services drew my eye to was the huge increase in our registrations. So on page 5 of my report, beneath some of the photos, we actually broke it out in a grid that showed that 2024 signups as of the first week in August were at a total of 928. 2023, we only had 358. So I don't know what was in the water in 2023. Maybe we're still recovering a little bit from the pandemic, but we are back. These are fantastic adoption numbers for our signups. Next month, we should have a total picture of what the total signups were because summer is almost over. I believe the end of our programming is this week on the 17th. So it was over before we knew it. But a lot to build on, a lot to be proud of, a lot to be really excited about. And then looking forward, summer reading's tough. The staff's gonna be a little bit tired, so I think they'll appreciate some downtime and get to relax a little bit. And that's good because I know we're working on our long-range planning. I'm hoping to roll out a short-term strategic plan to bridge us between now and the adoption of the long-range plan. And we have a little bit of time. There's no urgency. We can really plan accordingly. The last thing I wanted to point out, and I got a question about this right before the meeting, so it's very timely, is recruitment for some of our open positions. We just posted for our human resources manager and for our marketing assistant today. So hot off the presses, we have postings up for those 2 positions.
Marketing assistant different than a public information officer?
Yes, it has a slightly broader range of tasks they can take on, but it includes all the things we were looking for in the public information officer.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. We also have 3 open public services positions that we're looking to recruit. Those postings will probably go live hopefully tomorrow, knock on wood, if not next week. And then we'll be really close to fully staffed. I think that'll bring us up to 68, 69 staff members, and the most we've had in the past couple of years is 70. So we're close to being fully staffed.
What was the salaries?
I believe starting at 60 and 65. 65 was the HR manager and 60, excuse me, was the marketing assistant. And those both give us wiggle room to go up based on qualifications.
Do we know what they're paying in others? Some people.
Yes, we did a little bit of peer research for neighboring positions. We're competitive. And if somebody, yes, and if somebody comes in and wants a little bit more based on their qualifications, we can work with that. It's within the range. Okay. But yeah, I think we'll get qualified applicants with where we posted. And if I'm wrong, then we'll revise.
Thank you.
And both of those are within the budget that we had projected for the year for the position.
And you said the marketing assistant title does more than the original title that we had?
It does not do more, but it includes the same body of work. It's a little bit more of a generalist than a PIO is more of a specialist.
So it's one position and just a different title.
Yes.
Okay. It sounded like 2 for.
Oh, no, sorry. No. So the public information officer, their job specs are more tilted towards press releases and working with the media. And the marketing assistant is more targeted towards that plus social media plus graphic design.
It's one position.
It's one
Yep,
position.
yep.
I think the thing that's been lacking since we lost Luann is, the Altamont Enterprise article will be in every month and, just general publicity. So that would encompass this position.
It would, yes. And if not, in terms of the Altamont Enterprise specifically, I know in some cases the director writes those. So that is not outside my area of expertise if somebody needs to pinch it.
It's been noted by a number of people. How come it's not an article every publication? I said, well, you don't have something to do with it.
Right. And I'd reached out to the Altamont Enterprise to make sure that we were on the same page about how to get included in that. So once we're fully staffed, it's easy to get back on that.
Thank you so much. If you hadn't had a chance to read Pete's full report, I would encourage you to do it. There's some really great stuff happening in the library. And he highlighted throughout. Yeah, go ahead.
I really told them.
I was forewarned.
Okay.
Just the thing that- just to think about.
Pete, this is Bill. Can you hear me?
I can, I know.
Okay, good. All right, all right. I would just hope that, you've been on, in the saddle now for almost 3 months. Maybe next month, could you present the Board of Trustees with an overview of how you feel you've completed the onboarding process, the various ways that you went about touching the parts of the organization, things you really feel good about and things where you still need to learn more. So we get a sense for, your ability to manage the whole organization.
Yeah, no, I would be delighted to do that.
I think it would be very helpful. I think you've been doing a great job from what I've seen so far, but just to get a sense for how you have stepped into the reins of this and put your hands on all the different facets of the library so that we know that, you've touched it and we get your observations on having touched it. What are the things you feel good about? What are the things that you want to improve on? What are the things that, you might be shaping up for goals and objectives that you would set for your first year? I think it would just be helpful for me to get that sense at this point in time.
I'd be delighted, and I think 3 months is a perfect check-in time.
Yeah, I think so.
Well, that was one of mine.
Okay, I was gonna say Marcia has some additional
Just
questions.
quickly, I don't think we need a lot, just things that are on my mind.
Of course.
I know one of the big issues in the past was that the department head meetings were stopped.
Mhm.
And I think it was a real sore point with the staff. So I take it those have not been resumed, but you will resume them.
So there's a version of them that we do it might not be the same as what the previous one was, but it's called a service managers meeting. And that's when I actually get to meet with the department heads who do public service. It also includes our IT manager and our facilities manager. So it's a version of them that we do, and we do those every other week.
Because it's just good practice, I think, to meet with these folks.
Oh, yeah. No doubt.
I think what Bill said, in maybe the next meeting or the next group of meetings, I'd like some of your thinking on long-term and short-term planning.
Yep, happy to do
And
that.
whether you like it here, which is Bill's.
Well, I keep showing up, so glutton for punishment or I'm enjoying it.
Not the discussion today, but organizational changes that you're thinking of making, if any, if any. Any new programs that you or the staff would be interested in putting together. And we already talked about the HR hire. And I'd like to, I don't know whether or not you plan to make changes, but we'll be given a copy of reporting, who reports to whom, when we talk about whatever the old organizational changes were, which I never quite understood. I might. But I'd like to see how you're going to organize this library.
Yes.
By who reports to whom, what the pecking order is, not only that it's a pejorative. But I think it's important for folks to know to whom they have to report, who they're responsible for, when they come to you, when they go to the department head, those kinds of lines of responsibility.
Marcia, if you've been peeking in my office window, you have to tell me, because some of these things are things I've been
Yeah,
working on this
that's why I
week.
said, I'm not inventing a wheel, it's just, I'm just thinking about it. And last but not least, I think it would be helpful to the board, because one of the things I think a lot of people don't know, including the public, which hears our meetings, is the level of education that our staff has and what's required for librarian 1, librarian 2. It might be nice if you're comfortable with it. If department heads from time to time come and talk to the board. We have reports, we know what they're doing. But I think it would be very good to put a face to a department head, explain their education level, which I think would be eye-opening for a lot of people. You just don't walk in and become a librarian.
Nope.
And what it is they do in the library and things that they'd like to see done. So not to overstep you, Pete, I don't mean it that way, but we're all one family and I think it would be very helpful.
Yeah, no, and I'm incredibly proud of our staff. And like you mentioned, we have such a high level of experience, education, that I think, I can highlight them all day in the report and shout
Right.
them out.
Yep.
But it's different having them actually come in and say like, hi, this is who I am. This is what I do.
Yeah, I think
So
the
I love
board
that
and the
idea.
public who listens to these meetings would also be benefited by such a thing. Thanks.
Of course.
The other thing that would be, now that you mentioned that, that'd be helpful. Oops, Bill, Just looking for something.
No, Erin's here. I was just
Oh.
directing her to.
Oh.
If you could just give us a list of the current employees by department,
Mhm.
and if they're part-time, full-time, and maybe put it in next month's packet or post it.
Yeah, like an actual org chart.
Yeah, just so we know. And the other thing, name tags.
Mhm.
How are we coming along with that? They're supposed to have name tags on.
Everyone has them. You've actually called me out on a bad day. I'm not wearing mine, but yes, we all have our name tags.
I just wanted to mention something about one of your staff members, which I was really very happy about. My little sometimes works, sometimes doesn't, but there was a meeting going on in the way I usually come in through this back room. And there was a meeting going on. So I came by and I was going to go in through this entrance past the circulation desk. And somebody was coming out. And she said, "Who are you? Do you work here?" "No, because it's private space." And I was very pleased, that she just didn't hold the door for me and I walk in.
Yep.
So I said, "I'm really glad to do that you did that. That's great."
A high level of operational
And she said to
security.
me, well, and what she said was, "It's my duty to do that." Which was a perfect answer. So I just wanted to
Excellent. Well, I'm so glad to hear that. Thank you.
commend her.
Thanks for all the feedback. And now Pete has a lot to put together for us over the coming months for his director's report.
I did that. That's great. Of course. I want to vamp for a page about programs.
If there aren't any other comments or questions, we'll go ahead and move on to the committee reports. Tony, do you have anything from finance?
Well, we met right before this meeting, the attendance was a little bit light. We just went over what Jordan talked about earlier with the check register and the income statements. Going forward, we'd like to revisit the forest designated funds, but that's about where we are.
Thank you. Alicia, personnel? Okay, so personnel meeting occurred on July 31st. We had everybody there. Our room was virtual. We did our meeting mostly just kind of wrapping up the manager confidential contracts and getting that squared away. We do have those drafted up. Hopefully everyone got a chance to review. And so if you have any questions on that, I believe we're doing that executive session.
No, in new business, yeah.
In new business. Okay, so we'll discuss it then. But so that is in your folder or packet. And then I think all of our action items were completed, right? A lot was with Pete over here to follow up with Aaron and get some answers on the insurance. We had tentatively approved the wording based on what that was going to come back as. So we'll be seeking approval on those today, so we don't want to drag that out any longer. And then as a future agenda items for our next meeting, because we want to do our part in doing these annual reviews, right, is setting the benchmarks and goals with Pete. So that when we do an annual review, it's something that we can measure against and give you some direction from us. So that'll be the topic of our next meeting. So stay tuned. Okay.
Can I ask you just one? It occurred to me there was a piece of, I think, kind of leftover business from the personnel committee from last year that, and I don't think it's happened yet, but maybe it was, we talked about since he is supposed to have a annual performance review, I think in February every year, that we're gonna have a meeting with him to do like setting of goals and
Yeah.
expectations. Did that happen or?
No, that'll be the next meeting. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, that's what I was talking about, because we just wanted to get the contracts wrapped up, so that would have been a very long meeting,
I
so.
we wanted to make sure.
This will be the next one, and I imagine you'll be at that meeting,
I
so we
hope so.
can discuss it then. So if you have any thoughts in advance for goals you want to set for yourself,
Yep.
then we'll be able to discuss that. And so look for sometime later this month or early next month, before the next meeting, basically. That's it.
Thanks, Alicia. Bill, I know you submitted minutes from facilities. Did you want to add anything?
I don't need to add anything. We just briefly covered what the existing projects were. Alicia explained what she was working on, and Pete talked about some of the things he was working on with our new facilities manager, Mr. Symington. So they're all listed there. We'll be holding a meeting next month to start looking into which of those are going to be priorities moving forward, what we need to do to implement them.
Thank you. Mike, do you have a report from?
Yeah, and I have minutes that I emailed them out also, but I apologize for being late on that. The governance committee met. We went through kind of a whole list of various policies that had been kind of suggested as things that needed attention and needed to be looked at. We prioritized and selected, basically each of the 4 members of the committee is taking on one policy initially to kind of review, work on, and try and, bring a proposal back to the committee on. So we've got some, basically 4 policies, which in the minutes here, it's the social media policy, I guess it's a double 2 policies, the study room and meeting rooms policies, the investment policy, and Barb's working on a new photo and video policy. So those are kind of our first ones we're going to try and tackle and see how we go with that. And then there's a few other on the second page of the minutes. There's some that we're kind of getting more information on, a handful of other policies for potential for future attention. So that's where we are on that.
Okay. Thank you, Mike. Barbara, his nominations has had no need to meet.
Just eliminating that from monthly committee reports.
And just let us know when you have something. Okay. The long range planning has not met. However, we do have need to appoint 2 additional staff members if the board agrees to that. Last year, we had decided adding staff members to the planning committee was a good idea. For our new bylaws, they will be non-voting members, but they'll be invited. And so Michelle Butel, who was on the long range planning committee last year, would like to extend her term. And then Pete brought forward Christina Ronald also to serve on the long range planning committee. So I am hoping that we can have a motion to add those 2 staff members to the long range planning committee,
You want that today?
if possible.
Make a motion.
Okay. Okay, so we have Mike P on the motion and Barbara on the second then, is that all right? Okay. All in favor of adding Michelle Butel and Christina Ronald to the long range planning committee, please say aye. Aye. No opposed? No abstentions. Okay, great. Thank you all so much for that. And we will probably have a more in-depth report next month. Narita?
Can you just send me the names of the
Yeah.
minutes?
Yep, will do. Narita is not here. I don't know if board development is met, if anybody else is reporting.
I don't think we have on that one.
Okay. Is there anything to report from the cafe investigation committee, Mike?
We have not met, but, the work is ongoing. Bill, again, is doing the heavy lifting and kind of getting there. I think we're kind of closing in on, being done with this soon. Is that fair, Bill?
Yeah, I've got some drafts of the 5 key questions ongoing. Some of them are more completed than others, but we do need to have another committee meeting to just go through some open issues and maybe do another couple of quick interviews, and then I think we'd be ready to wrap up. I'm optimistic we could get this thing done at the committee before the next board meeting, if we could just meet a couple of times to do that.
Okay. Yep.
Thank you so much. Alicia, is there anything to report from the foundation?
So they did not have a quorum for their meeting. They did end up just having a discussion though. I'll say that the main takeaways from that were basically that they unfortunately had to cancel the golf fundraiser. So they were looking into returning any registration fees that were paid for that, unless people wanted to keep the donation with us. So I think they only had 16 people sign up out of like the 60 minimum. So they're looking at another potential fundraising opportunity and maybe utilizing our library as a large space for some sort of activity. I don't know. I think they're looking into some ideas or also accepting ideas if anybody has anything. And that's pretty much it. Yeah, just without a quorum, they were unable to vote on anything. So stay tuned till the next one.
Upper Hudson Library System did not have a meeting in August. We typically cancel. However, since it didn't report in July, I just did want to share that the board at this moment did not approve adding Schenectady County Library into our system. So, but we are open to looking at it in the future. The discussion was simply tabled. It wasn't even voted on. If there's no other comments or questions on committee reports, is there any old business that needs to be discussed? Okay, the first item on new business then is to approve the management confidential contracts as presented by the Personnel Committee.
And I noticed there's a note on here, if there's discussion needed, then push it to executive.
Okay.
basically. Is that right? Okay. So does anybody have any questions on the contract?
We have the new language that are provided by the
Yeah.
executive session.
The most recent version that I sent electronically was the final version.
It says here under executive session to discuss this contract. Do we need that, or
So it
I thought
sounds,
we were gonna discuss and then vote on it?
I guess at what level of discussion would constitute executive versus like,
Oh, it just says if discussion is needed, say for executive session.
Yeah, I think if we need to get into individuals, then we would take it to executive session, but just the contract is,
okay,
I would think we're fine.
okay.
So do we need a motion on this then?
Yeah.
All right, I'll make the motion to approve the contract as presented.
Okay,
I'll second that.
okay. Is there additional discussion then? Alicia, anything you want to highlight?
Nothing much. I know we did have quite a few number of negotiations, and I think that things are like a happy point where there's a little bit of give and take. So not huge oversweeping changes. There's a little bit of tweaks with the vacation leave, the longevity pay, the addition of like the separated sick bank, right, for administrative versus the union employees, if we upped the cap for that because it was pretty low. So this allows for a little bit more flexibility with, some director input too on being able to utilize that, an additional bereavement leave day. Those are sort of the big takeaways. And so the folks that are getting this contract know more or less what the changes are and are good with it.
Yes, they were
Okay.
sent a memo outlining the changes
Okay.
to the previous
They
contracts.
have any concerns or anything. Okay.
I just had a question. Under health insurance, right at the very bottom, the employee at retirement, provided they have 20 consecutive years of full-time service to the library. That's us, right? That they've been on staff here for 20 years,
Yes.
not just in the system somewhere.
Not just any library, yeah, it's gotta be us.
And that is defined someplace.
Yeah, capital L library.
Yep. Yeah.
Otherwise, I'd be knocking on that door. So in the profession.
Yep.
And the other question on that next page, it says the library will pay the same contribution toward an individual plan in retirement that it paid toward the employee's elected plan at the time of retirement. That's a little bit different than the three older employees that have retired who you were commenting on the small amount that we pay for their health insurance, that we pay for their secondary insurance for those. Now, was that weighed in measure? I just noticed this today and was wondering if we're giving away more than we did before, basically. What is?
I mean,
Says
as the
we'll pay
plans,
the same contract, say you're, one of the people were getting $690.
Yeah.
Now, a secondary plan per month is not, under your Medicare, doesn't come close to $690.
I think you get a difference, right?
So,
Yeah, and there's the last paragraph under that. I don't see page numbers, but it does address if they become Medicare eligible, the library will continue to pay the same amount it was paying for individual coverage up to, this amount may be used towards healthcare benefits. Is that correct?
But under this wording, we're paying the same $690 ad infinitum, not once they reach Medicare age. Then the amount dropped precipitously because we were only paying for their secondary. So they're still going to get the same amount of coverage as they did working here.
We didn't adjust that language at all from the last contract.
Yeah.
I don't know what it was before, yeah. I mean, unless somebody else was remembering, I don't, Mike, do you remember that? We did not.
I don't remember. when
So
we-
the last 3-4 year contract that they had,
I don't think we touched anything on like the last like page and a half, basically. I remember kind of being like, oh, and we're done, and we don't have anything on the last page, so that's the same, right? That's the same we already had. We didn't change anything.
See, I don't know when that changed because there was a great discussion when we had the first retirement. And the prices will quickly go down once we reach Medicare age, and it made sense that then you would pick up your secondary. But to pay them the same amount, $690 versus $190, that's, that's per employee, $500 a month or more. That's gonna add to your long-term costs ad infinitum.
Yeah, and I did get confirmation that that is the same as it was in the previous version of the contract. It's also consistent with Unit 2, this contract.
I mean, I think the barrier for entry to that is steep. I don't think we get a ton of people that have basically been here 20 years
And-
that get that payout.
And within Management Confidential and Unit 2, we're talking about maybe 12 employees all told. So all of us would have to make it, over if any of us get to that point. Yeah, and most of us are very new to Guilderland Public Library.
Thank you.
other questions? If not, all those in favor of approving the management confidential contracts, please signify by saying aye.
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 Is there anyone opposed? No abstention? Okay, that passes unanimously. The next piece on the agenda, I'm going to pass out some supporting materials that I just finished getting them compiled today. And Bill, I emailed it over to you. This is the piece on board expectations, and I just want to go over it briefly, and everyone can take a look at this later. We're going to talk about it more next month. So it will be under old business for next month. But the first page of this is just sort of outlining what the expectations are. I think over the last few years, we've maybe blended those lines between staff and board members. So just clarifying a couple of little pieces that are going to help us move forward more smoothly. So as board members, we are allowed, Pete is our employee, we are allowed to make requests of his time and his services, but we're not allowed to make requests of the library staff. So anything that we have that we need a library staff person to do, we'll just send it through Pete going forward. So we'll just ask him and he will parse that on out as part of his director's responsibilities if it's in somebody's wheelhouse and in their job responsibilities. The exceptions to that are listed in there. Amy has agreed and is happy to receive committee minutes from us directly, set up the committee schedules and the WebEx requests. Those can go directly to her. So those are the exceptions right on the top of that. So the board meetings, some things that are outlined on that. So in order to be compliant with what the legal requirements are, we need to be posting our full board packet 1 week in advance of the board meetings. So anything that we're going to ask to be voted on needs to be into folks a week in advance. I'm just trying to get us in compliance. So I'm not actually making up any new rules. These are just the rules that currently exist. And board members should make an effort to submit. We all know that's not reasonable. I didn't submit my stuff, but that's what we should make an effort to do, is to submit all other materials so that they can also be included in the packet. And that's what gets posted for the public to see, so we can remain as transparent as possible. So the rest of this after the committee meetings really dives into the open meetings law, which we know has been rough for us, but the committee meetings going forward, we're just going to record them all. They won't be streamed, but that way if we need to reference anything and the appropriate committee meetings will be posted. So there's just a couple of notes in here, and then again, all of you know this already, but they're supposed to take place in person and need a quorum to conduct an official business or vote. Amy and the staff, and also to be in compliance, have requested that we try our best to schedule our committee meetings at least a week in advance. We know that's sometimes tough, but we're gonna shoot for the stars. And obviously, we know this, and I'm guilty of it too, but the business of the committee should take place in committee meetings. And then the committee should bring forward their recommendations to the board, so that we don't get too bogged down in a whole bunch of little minutia. But that's our goals. And then we also are required to submit our committee minutes within 2 weeks of having the committee meeting. And again, that's within the listing of what we are to do, so it's nothing new. So I just wanted to put all that stuff down so it's on paper. I'm going to send an email copy of this. Go ahead, Barbara, hit me.
Number 2, committee meetings must take place in person and need a quorum in person, just like our board meetings.
Yes.
But you can vote if you're remote.
So there's a little bit more of this that's on the next page. So if you flip it over, what I have included in this is, so this is my summary, is what the one that says summary of open meetings law documentation. After that, you get to the New York State Committee on Open Government put together this Q&A. And so I included that. The highlights on there are my own. There are things that I thought might be particularly applicable to us because they deal with things. And so essentially I've tried to summarize those highlights. And then there is a resolution that's the next piece of this that was a draft that came through the New York State Committee on Open Government. They have a draft of a resolution, and we need to pass that to also get in compliance. So we'll do that next month. And then I actually also attached the 3 pages of the actual law. So I know there are people that have questions about what that is. And it's not too legalese, but it's actually attached here. So if you want to read through that and see where it documents everything. The big highlights, like I said, I included in this summary. What we need to do, and before we pass this resolution, is we need to just define what we consider extraordinary circumstances. There's some standard language that we can use. They did make a note, unfortunately, that we've been using things like vacations and work travel for extraordinary circumstances. We can't really do that going forward now that we know. We have to have a quorum here in this physical space or in any other physical spaces combined that are publicly disclosed. The people that are participating remotely must disclose the location they're joining from a week in advance of the meeting is what the requirement is. I think there is some wiggle room if, for instance, someone gets sick and is unable to attend, that can be said later. And then if you're participating from a location that doesn't allow public access, such as your home, you don't count towards the quorum, and they can only vote if there's a quorum in the location open to the public. If the meeting is being held, or someone is participating because of extraordinary circumstances and there's no public access, like your home, the meeting has to be streamed with notice of that given. There's also one unique issue in here, which is that if there is a regular public comment portion of the meeting, like our board meetings have, and a member of the board is participating remotely with no public access, we need to be allowing somehow in the virtual portion of it for the public to participate and not just view. Aaron can probably chime in with anything that I missed, but, and then anything that's includes virtual participation has to be recorded and posted to the library website. So you can dive into all of the other lovely things the state has to say. Did I miss anything? I didn't expect you to be here for this part. So
I'm very
but here you are. So I know it's a lot. And like I said, I didn't have a chance to get this together before today, but I'm not asking us to do anything with it today. But we will need to pass that resolution so that we are on the right side here.
I just want to clarify. So
Please.
if somebody wants to participate remotely from a location where public access is allowed.
Yeah.
Okay, then extraordinary circumstances are not required. We just have to post it a week in advance where their location is and they're
I
doing
think
it.
we would want it to be an official location of, you read through and give me your interpretation when you have a chance.
All right.
So I think that's more designed for boards that maybe like the State Library Board has an official location in Rochester and Albany and the city, and those would be like technically remote.
Right, because they have, I'm just look, I'll read this more thoroughly later and
Okay.
come back to it, yeah. Because, that's my question is,
Like the answer to that is yes, if you're gonna be somewhere that allows public access, you can have it there. You just have to have in the notice that the public can equally access it from that location.
okay. And so it's
And
just,
I'm so sorry, the extenuating circumstances doesn't necessarily apply to that circumstance. That's more of a reasonable explanation provided to the board that the board is satisfied with.
okay,
Just what Karen just said is what Tim Burke basically told us, is that there are sort of two categories, the one where you post the location and you can participate. And the second is if you want to set up these extraordinary circumstance categories and all that kind of stuff. So what we'll read this and
Yeah, let's get and talk through that, because I think that's where it gets a little tricky, Barbara, is like if somebody is offsite and wants to have it at Starbucks, like what is the rationale to have it at Starbucks? Like everybody's invited to Starbucks, but so we'll probably just have to, everybody can review it. We can talk about that a little bit more.
For the recorded committee meetings, does that exclude ones where there's confidential information being discussed? Or do we record them all for posterity, just some are public and some are not?
Excellent question.
so, yeah, this is something that the governance committee actually discussed briefly, whether we want to have a policy as among our policies that would cover streaming and recording of all our committees, just to define, because exactly what our approach is going to be. When are we going to be recording? When are those recordings going to be streamed live? When are the recordings going to be posted online? My understanding is that the executive session rules work exactly the same way in committee as they do at a full board meeting. So if it's something that would qualify for executive session on a full board meeting, then we can similarly go executive session on a committee meeting, but it's kind of.
And I was only trying to state what is required.
Yeah,
If somebody's participating virtually, we have to record it. We have to post it
Right.
if it's a committee meeting. So I don't want to policy it up. I don't.
Well, just so it's clear, like when we're in a committee, if we have a committee meeting and, and we should, people should know, because if we're recording all the committee meetings, what's the expectation, whether they're going to be posted or not? So people know, well, if we're going to say something that's confidential or whatever, do we need to go into executive session and shut off the recording, or go into executive session and we keep recording, but we cut it and don't paste it or post it, or how are we going to handle all that? And so I think that's, hopefully that
Well,
will be.
this is also undercuts, what we have been doing, like doing it virtually, according to this. We have to be here in person.
And the training we had with Tim Burke, that's what they made clear, was that our existing approach was not.
So that means if we need to go into an executive session, we don't need an IT person here at our committee meetings.
No, once the WebEx is launched, I can just stop this.
But the big change is no more virtual committee meetings.
Well, one,
so you can still have a virtual.
Yeah, but
the
You need a
forum
quorum.
has to be
Yeah,
here.
so that effectively means, well,
Yeah.
what committees are there? 4 or 5?
It just makes it a lot more difficult for people to get together.
Yeah.
It does, but we have consolidated our committee structure, so I'm hopeful that's gonna help us in practicality, like. Not on 4 committees, I don't
Also,
have to
in
go.
governance, Mike suggested, which is a great idea before, is that we set it at a certain day and time on a monthly basis.
And then cancel it if you
It's a
don't
done
need it.
deal, we don't have to fish for it.
Seeing that Aaron is here, like a personnel committee meeting, I would say probably at least 70% of those have to do with confidential material. So would those have to be recorded? Say we're going in and then we're just gonna go in for executive session?
I think my thought is just best practices, treat it like you would a board meeting where somebody still moves that you enter executive session and shut it off. I don't know.
Assuming someone's always gonna be virtual for those meetings. and
No,
following-
I think it's the nature of the topics. So like if we're discussing like a a personnel matter.
Matter worthy of.
Right, right. Would we treat it like a meeting where we're just like, we call this meeting to order and here's our 2 seconds of that recorded and then we go to executive session and that's
Yeah,
the
and
end
then
of
you
it?
would want to also cite the reason for which your committee is entering executive session.
Okay. Versus just like not doing that at all. You're saying best practice is to at least do that for 2 seconds and then.
Yeah, treat it like a board meeting.
They're essentially subcommittees of the board. They're essentially mini board meetings.
So
So,
on that note, okay,
yeah, oh, I was just gonna say, I think we should consider, and I'm not sold either way on this, but we should consider possibly also streaming committee meetings, except when we have to go into an executive session and not just recording them, but also streaming them. And one reason I say that is, we need a forum here in person of committee members to run the committee, but if we had for a committee meeting for someone who is not on the committee, who wants to just attend and watch, but not necessarily, they're not a voting member of the committee and they don't need to vote on it, but they just want to be like a member of the public watching it. If it's streamed, they can log in and stream and watch it as it's going without having, like it's, for example, like I'm not on the committee right now. It's depending when they meet or whatever, might be very inconvenient for me to come here in person and sit here in the room, but if I could just pop it on the thing.
and that's practical application. So I would just suggest like we
Let's-
go through this documentation and then get into like sort of,
Yeah.
for right now, let's just
Yeah.
abide by the rules and then work on how this will
Do you
work.
mean like a streaming to YouTube or are you just talking about just having a WebEx link for every meeting? So you have the option to pop in. Because I see those as two separate
I hadn't
things.
thought-
Okay, no, you're fine. I was just saying, those are like two different
Yeah.
things to
Yeah.
me, is like
Yeah.
just having a link, yeah, then you can join in, but a stream is like, it's on YouTube, anybody can watch it. So-
We will revisit this and take a look at the resolution and make sure that that's something we can get. So we're in compliance that we can.
Totally unrelated, that I should have brought up when you're talking long range planning. Past long range plans, we've had community members on the committee. And I don't know if you're considering.
I'll put that,
Volunteers for that or not.
I'll put that on the agenda and see about the committee as a whole, what they think. Yeah. Thanks for that suggestion. Okay. So, speaking of, we actually have need of going in, is there any other further public input? Pete, has anything rolled in? Okay. If there is no other public input, we have need of an executive session for discussion regarding proposed pending or current litigation. So do we have a motion to enter executive session? Marcia, thank you. And thanks, Elise, for the second. All in favor of entering executive session? Okay. Thank you so much. Okay. You'll be entering. Yes. Okay. Okay. See you, Ray. Thanks so much.
You'll have to go out and then come back in.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's a different link.
and we actually,
Bill, you've got the second link, right?
Yes, I do. I gotta figure out how to get into it here. So,
No worries. All right, see you over there.
He has a few books.